Okay, so in part 2 of our macronutrients series, we're going to get down into what actually these macronutrients are. So there are 4 macronutrients that supply energy to our body. Proteins, fats, carbs, and alcohol. I'll kind of get into what each of them represents, kind of our starting point for recognizing what fits where. And we'll just make this one pretty quick today because there's just some fine points without diving too deep. And then tomorrow's lesson will actually be on how we allocate those numbers based on our overall goals. So let's start with protein. Protein represents 4 calories per gram of protein. Okay, so if you have a piece of chicken, lean chicken that has 30 grams of protein, you're going to have 120 calories, right? We'll call them kcals because that's the professional way to do it, I guess. So 4 calories per gram. If you have 30 grams, that represents 120 calories within that chicken breast. And that's not taking into account any kind of fat, which moves us into the next piece. Fats represent 9 calories per gram. So that means if you have a tablespoon of olive oil, which generally represents 14 grams of fat, you're going to have 90, 9, 18, 27, 36, 126 grams, excuse me. If you have 14 grams, which equals 126 calories. I'm going to take the kcal out because I don't like that. 14 grams equals 126 calories. All right, so just know that protein represents 4 calories per gram. Fats represent 9 calories per gram. When you're counting calories, this is literally how you see every piece of food. It's like the Matrix. If you've ever seen that movie, every scene that they see is represented by numbers and formulas and algorithms, right? So every time you look at a meal when you're counting calories, you see it represented by numbers. Carbs, the good news about carbs is it represents also 4 calories per gram. So for the most part, and this will come into more important play when we start actually figuring out where these numbers go, but let's say we had a food that had 30 grams of carbs in it, that equals 120 calories. So it makes the math easy, especially when you're working with these two together. Now let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol is its own macronutrient because your body sees it as energy and it still wants to break it down. And it's under my understanding that it's 7 calories per gram. And which means if you have however many grams of alcohol, let's say 10 grams, you have 70 calories. Now, we have to convert that over to ounces, which I can't off the top of my head think about what those are right immediately. So I'll have to follow up on that. I'm shooting off the top of my head, and it's been a long morning. So 7 calories per gram, which equals 10 grams and 70 calories. So when we're working with this, we have to look at alcohol as its own piece. Because what happens when we ingest alcohol, and this is why we hold on to weight really easily when we drink heavily and eat bad foods, our body shuts down processing of these 3 main macronutrients and starts focusing on breaking down alcohol because it sees it as a poison and wants to flush it out of the system as quick as possible. So when you think about, let's say you've gone out for a night of drinking and you've had 12, let's say 12 beers, right? However many calories that breaks into and however much alcohol that breaks into, your body's focusing on breaking that down. And so you go out and have a hamburger and french fries for some late night food, and your body is too busy breaking down this alcohol that the other stuff is getting gobbled up through your bloodstream by your fat cells, right? It doesn't have anywhere to put it. It's not taking the time to put it in the necessary stores, so it's just getting gobbled up and put and stored instead of being used as energy or whatever else, because your body's too busy focusing on this. We can combat that a little bit by taking less focus on fat and carbs when we're drinking and more focus on protein and vegetable matter, right? That's a whole nother topic down the road. I just want you to know that when we start counting, your main purpose here in counting calories is to see these numbers as you see it. So if you have a meal that has, for instance, and there are programs to do this, but if you've been doing it long enough, you could have a meal that equals 4 ounces of chicken, let's say 1 cup of sweet potatoes and a tablespoon of olive oil with broccoli as the side. Broccoli, I don't know how to spell broccoli. One thing to note is that 1 ounce of protein equals 7 grams of protein. So if we know that 1 ounce of protein is 7 grams and we have 4, that's 7, 14, 21, 28 grams of protein, which equals 112 calories, okay? You won't ever have to do this. Usually you can plug something like that into MyFitnessPal and be done with it. 1 cup of sweet potatoes, for the most part, is around, I think, 25 of cooked sweet potatoes, 25 grams of carbs, which translate into, what is that? 4, 8, 80 plus 20, which equals 100-ish calories. And then we already figured out that 1 tablespoon of fat equals 14 grams, which equals 126 calories. Green vegetables are fairly negligible because your body, it takes more energy to break down those calories because of fiber and things like that are fairly negligible. You'd have to really eat a whole bunch for them to really matter, which is another discussion. But for right now, we won't count it because it doesn't technically matter because of fiber. 6, 8, 3, and we have a meal of 338 calories. So, what does that mean for you? That means that is not a lot of calories, but if you were to see that meal on a plate, you would say, man, that's a pretty big meal. Okay, and that's why food quality matters in overall weight loss, because if we did that times 5, what does that equal? So we have, that's 8, that's 40, 16, 17, 18, 19, 5, 10, 15, 16, 1,690 calories for the day, right? For 5 meals of that. And you would look at that meal and be like, wow, that is a lot of food. But because we're in such a negative surplus for the day, that's why food quality overall does matter before counting calories, because you're going to be in a deficit of calories. Because if you recall, we talked yesterday, let's say you're maintenance was 2,500 calories. Now we have a deficit each day of, what is that, 810? Yeah, roughly. 810 calories. Deficit daily. And you can see over a month, so this is very similar to what we did when we did a 75-day challenge. And the reason why, for myself, I was able to drop about 25 pounds and about 5% body fat over 75 days is because we had consistently about that. I think tracking mine, I was eating about 2,200 given what was actually on my plate. But it's really easy to lose weight when you focus on quality. So I know I kind of went in a bunch of different directions there. The main takeaway from here, y'all, is that, let me erase this stuff. Protein is 4 calories a gram. Fats, 9 calories per gram. Carbs, 4 calories per gram. And alcohol, 7 calories per gram. And I want to say per ounce. I just need to do the conversion. I'm sorry, I don't know the math conversion on that. But you can do that. Just type in how many grams in an ounce, and that'll give you the total conversion of most alcohols. Now, you have to think about these in a grain-style alcohol scenario. Stuff like wine will be very similar to that. Vodka, things like that. When you start getting into beers, stuff that has carbohydrates in it, the number is going to skew a little bit, right? So, but we're looking at how the actual alcohol content is broken down, not the overall calories for the drink. So take that for what it is. Tomorrow we will learn how you find your required calories for the day based on your activity and how we actually divvy those things up so that you know where everything goes based on what you have to do.